I tried to enjoy the moment as much as I could. I sat there, I cried a little bit. I took the highest selfie in the world, and I got up and started moving. And not far into it, a few feet, everything just went completely white. Like, I'm at the highest point in the world. I'm completely alone. No one's coming to get me, and I'm blind.
Hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Salvation from Destruction podcast. Today we'll be speaking with Brian Dickinson. Brian served 6 years as a U.S. Navy aviation rescue swimmer with 2 deployments to the Persian Gulf. After leaving the military, Brian climbed mountains on 7 different continents, including Mount Everest. On this episode, I will be talking with Brian about his incredible story of survival. In May 2011, Brian solo summited Mount Everest. A few moments later, after his summit, Brian became completely snowblind and had to descend 29,000 feet off the mountain alone. Ultimately, Brian had to rely entirely on his military training, his other senses, and his faith to inch his way down the mountain. Brian has since shared his story in his book, Blind Descent, and on his podcast called Calm the Chaos, and is the author of 2 other books, also called Calm the Chaos and Bloodline of Redemption. Brian is a motivational speaker, and his harrowing story was featured on Fox News, CNN, and several other notable podcasts and news platforms. So I'd like to welcome to the show, Brian Dickinson.
Hey, great to be here. Finally.
Yeah. No, I know. It's been a couple months in the making, but you finally were able to come on. I know you're a busy guy, but I really, really want to highlight your incredible story of survival and how you survived a snowblind descent off of Mount Everest. But before we get into that, just tell us a little bit about where you grew up.
Yeah. Grew up in Southern Oregon, sort of just down there in a small town, like 2,000 people in our town, 69 in my graduating class. You know, it was the 80s. Things got a little crazy back then. No internet or anything else. So we just went out and played outside, jumping off bridges into the river and mountain biking and hiking and just a lot of adventure.
Is that where like your interest in mountain climbing first started, would you say?
Yeah, I'm sure. I was always hiking up the mountains there, nothing like excessive, no like glacial travel or anything else or real rock climbing. But yeah, I was always out just getting nature therapy.
Yeah, that was always great. I mean, especially with us too, growing up in just the south side of Chicago. We spent all of our time riding our bikes, playing baseball, and just being outside. We were never inside. Our parents would always just kind of kick us out and go do something, get out of here. When you joined the military, or you decided to join the military, was that something that you always wanted to do, or was that something that you decided that you wanted to do a little bit later in life as you got older?
I don't think I ever wanted to early on. Like I'd play army or whatever, what kids do and shooting, pellet guns and whatever. But I think I got closer to, it's that choice, what are you going to do next? I knew I had to get out of a small town because there's not a lot of opportunity there, especially back in the 80s. No internet or anything else. You can't do any remote jobs. But when it came down to it, like I had opportunities to go play soccer and had scholarship opportunity for art. I wasn't ready to just continue into college. I wanted to go serve, do something exciting. I come from a big trail of Navy and some Army, but grandparents and my dad and everything. My brother was in the Navy. So wasn't like unfamiliar, but I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to just go in and do normal military. So that's why I signed up to be a aviation rescue swimmer.
So what's that pipeline like after you join the Navy and you graduate boot camp?
It's interesting now because it seems like every other social media post is like the helicopter and the crewmen, doing their jumps, working with SEALs, doing all the CSAR, everything, stuff that we did. But back when I went in, like no one knew what that was. It'd been out for a while, like even before it was like an official rate. So it's kind of like old school. And it's funny because as you get old, when you're in, it's what you're doing. And when you get out later, you realize like you're old school. like
Right.
the salty person. But yeah, it's tough. It's the attrition rate is it's really, really high. Most people don't do well in oxygen deprived situations in the water. Most aren't strong swimmers. And especially when you're being attacked, because every day you're learning the techniques, you're just getting just incredibly fit, but mainly learning to stay calm in chaotic situations. Just every scenario you can imagine, from active survivors to face down in the water, F-14 ejections, spitting out their teeth and, sucking chest wounds and just all kinds of amazing things because it really makes you think and kind of like slow down at a very fast pace to be able to remain calm as you're trying to help someone in the water and another person surfaces behind you and locks onto your neck. And now you have to do life-saving techniques, bring them deep, get control, do like water jujitsu, ask for the hoist from the helicopter that's hovering 70 foot above and get that person out, go back and, save lives. And then when you're done with that, you're being hoisted up and there's multiple, like a triage center of just, people spurting blood out and, just the moulage, it's legit, like the advanced first aid. So it's the that school is like 4 to 5 weeks. So, I mean, it goes pretty fast. You do air crew before that, which is basic water survival, land survival, like the helo dunker and all that, where they strap you into a simulated helicopter, drop it in the water, blindfolded, flips over, you have to get out. But it's the pipeline itself from start to finish is actually about 2 years
Wow.
because it's multiple schools and anything is, a fail out type of scenario. So like for me, I was anti-submarine warfare, which was my specialty, my rate. So I had to go, behind secret closed doors because it was all classified, learn about all the different submarines and just how to, track them, identify them. It's like opposite extremes. You're going from like full on hands on, combat in the water to, sitting behind a desk learning about subs. And then next you're going to SERE school, which is pretty brutal. Just a lot of different schools. And then the final one is really the fleet replacement. That's where you start actually flying and learning the helicopter and, just becoming a crewman.
Can you tell the listeners what SEER school is? Can you give us like a scenario about that training?
It's interesting because a lot of it's classified. I actually wrote a chapter in Calm in the Chaos about it and had some SEER instructors look at it, had it vetted out from the DoD, and everything was fine. But it's basically POW survival school. SEALs, aviation, like submarine corps. If you're at risk of being captured and you have information, you go through this school, and it's a few weeks, and it's brutal. It's survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. And you are out in the field evading, and it's very very realistic. Like bad guys with blanks firing over your head and crawling for miles and learning to survive off the land. And then the end of it, you have to get captured. So you go into the camp, and it's very effective. And it's one of these schools that they encourage failure because you learn from your failures, and everyone's going to fail. And at some level, because you're being interrogated and coerced to give information in certain ways.
What would you say was the hardest part of your training? Was there a certain scenario? Was there like a certain class that you went through? Like, what was the hardest part of your training, would you say?
I think it all hinges on rescue swimmer school. That is the make or break. And it's a lot of us, we all have our, most people that get into special ops or like even what you did, but most of us have some sort of trauma that we survived as through our childhood. And none of us want to camp in it. We all have a victim story, but we'll never call it that. But what we do is we get into special ops, and we are very effective at it because we are unconsciously chasing trauma, which later in life, hopefully a lot of us realize because it's not healthy,
Right.
but it makes us very effective at those jobs. We become very good at it because we're trying to change that outcome. And for me, rescue swimmer school was tough, but it was uniquely tough for me. I mean, I was super fit and doing well, but my father figure, my grandpa, attempted suicide halfway through it. He shot himself, and I had to pause on training, take emergency leave, fly across the US to basically go see him and say goodbye. That was the toughest for me. And any of these schools, anything you go through in the military, it's way more psychological. And I had to really overcome a major hurdle to get in the mindset to push through. Because when I came back, they some of the instructors put me in front of a board and wanted me to be removed, just thinking there's
Really?
no way you can go through that and be able to make it through, one of the toughest schools. And I pleaded my case and they gave me a shot and then I made it right through. But yeah, so that was the hardest thing for me.
So then after you graduated, were you assigned to a task unit or a squadron?
So after anti-submarine warfare school, half the class went East Coast, half went West. I went West out to San Diego, which is where the remaining of the training was. It's not until you're done with the fleetment replacement where you're flying in the helicopters, like right towards the end, right before you get your wings, they say this squadron has a need. So my class, we only had two graduating that got their wings in my class.
What's that like? Well, when you finally, after your 2 years of going through everything that you go through, all this training, and you finally graduate, that you have to feel like you're on the top of the world.
It's a lot to process. And I feel like that's been a theme in my life that I'll be in those moments and I can't really embrace the moment or
Mhm.
celebrate because one, it doesn't feel real or I have imposter syndrome or, whatever it is. It's weird. I don't know. And not everyone's like that, but I
Yeah.
know a lot of people are.
Is there any one mission in your career that kind of stands out to you?
I did two deployments in the Persian Gulf. I mean, my first flight ever, even in the training squadron, we hit the water. Like the helicopter came in. We were doing a practice SAR, search and rescue. We were going to do like a simulated jump of the swimmer, and trainee pilot just dropped the collective, and we hit, and the cabin was filling with water. And fortunately, the helicopter aircraft commander, the instructor, was able to take control and get us out of there. That was like welcome to the Navy.
Right.
When we were deployed, it'd be 6 months at a time. Um, and 3 months of that would usually be in the Persian Gulf. So we did a lot of fun stuff. I had a
Yeah.
medevac off of a submarine, which is always any medevac's always interesting. We do a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Just shooting up tanks over in Kuwait, after the first Gulf War, just doing some target practice out there is always fun, just kind of sparking all the tanks and then like A-10s, the Warthogs coming in
Mhm.
and F-18s just dropping their payloads is just it's stuff that in the moment you're like, this is pretty badass, and you don't realize how quickly those moments are just going to fade, because then you're on to the next thing in life, and it's like,
Right.
wow, I didn't realize at the time that that might have been one of the coolest things I've ever seen, and most people would never see in their life.
Right. One of the things that I really enjoyed about your book was how you met your wife Joanna and how important she is to you.
Mhm.
And we talked briefly before this episode on how our spouses deeply influence us. Can you talk about like how and when you met your wife?
Yeah, I just got back from my first deployment. So yeah, just it's weird when you're gone for 6 months. Like even now, like on an expedition or something, if I'm gone for a month or something, when you come back and you have to reacclimate into society. I got to do that with her. I met her. I was living in a complex down in San Diego with a couple guys, Navy guys, and was in the hot tub and there she was. So yeah, first thing I did was lie to her.
That's never good.
Well, someone asked, I don't know if it's to her, but there was a bunch of girls in there and they asked, what we all did. And last thing you want to do is say you're in the military. So I had my shorts on and my butt cheeks hanging out. And I said, I'm a plumber. They're laughing, but my wife, Joanna, was like, you're a jerk. I'm like, ooh.
Oh, so she called you out right away.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
So
that's great.
little feisty. So yep, that was the end or the beginning. That was the beginning.
Right. Now, I know your Christian faith is important to you. Was it around that time that you found Christ? And was Joanna also a Christian at the time? Did you guys find Christ together?
Yeah, I grew up Lutheran, but I mean, I didn't go to church very much. The church had the same parking lot as the local bar, so my parents would drop me and my brother and sister off, and they would go hit the bar a lot of times. And so yeah, I wouldn't say it was a great experience. I went to church during boot camp and then took a break. Found some people of faith in my squadron, which helped. But yeah, Joanna and she grew up Southern Baptist, so kind of like opposite extremes. When we were dating, we came from dysfunction and we could not be more opposite, even to this day. Could not. I mean, do a spreadsheet, my stuff, her stuff, completely opposite. And we found a small Southern Baptist church down there by, just where we lived. And that was the one thing that just kind of kept us straight and narrow. And we had a lot of growing up to do. But yeah, it's been a process. I won't say everything was just great no matter what. It's just, it's everyone's on their own path, their journey.
Yeah. It's funny you say that about Joanna, because my wife and I too, we're the exact polar opposites. And I've been with her now, including dating, 27 years. And somehow, some way it works. I owe it all to God, our relationship, what we've been through, what we're going to go through, and everything else in between. If we didn't have that Christian foundation, I cringe to think where we would be.
Yeah. Same.
So yeah, definitely. But so then fast forward a little bit, what'd you end up doing after that for a career?
Yeah, we moved up to the Pacific Northwest, just outside of Seattle, as Joanna was getting her master's at University of Washington. I was getting my MBA at University of Phoenix. So I was working full time in IT. So one of the jobs I had in the military, like a side job, was handling all the secure information. And then that's when computers and the networking and everything started getting big. Got into that. And right when I got out, I worked at the Space and Naval Warfare before we moved up here. But yeah, I worked in that for a long time. In fact, I just walked away from it last year just because I had so many talks, and I'm writing 2 more books right now. So there's just felt like God just like parted the seas of focus on this for now. I don't know what tomorrow will look like, but in the past year, it's been the most at peace I've had. And I haven't been working a real job. So can be stressful in itself. But I was working in high tech for many, many years, and it was good, but I don't know. It's not my calling.
What made you want to start climbing mountains? I want to start getting into that a little bit. You climbed several mountains on 7 different continents. Can you explain which mountains that you climbed and how you got into mountain climbing?
When I have an idea, I should stop and pray about it. That's not always the case. It's like these ideas, I'm already heading down a path, and it's like, wait, you got to like pause, take a step back. Like, God, is this me or is this you? Because this sure feels like you, like, because it's all me. That came after, but yeah, no, just working in high tech. I'm sitting behind a desk. One day I'm jumping out of helicopters and doing this really cool job. Next, I'm sitting behind a desk, and I just had this adventure gap. We had our kids, and being a dad and everything else, but it's like still, it's just God wired me a certain way. And it was really just doing the investigative work of like, okay, what do I need to be doing to be me? So I started climbing, and out here we have the, Mount Rainier and the Cascades. We have just no shortage of just amazing adventures to go on. So I started climbing, doing some training, and then just decided to climb the highest peaks on the 7 continents. It's like, I don't I don't know. I don't do anything like small, I guess. So Joanna, my wife, is just like, "Are you serious?" But she knows like if I say it, I'm going to do it. It's just kind of how I roll. To answer your question, the first one I did was Denali up in Alaska, and that's the highest in North America. And I got within 1,000 feet, and the weather was just insane. So we were pinned down for a week at high camp. One climber from another team got blown off the top. We went up, made a summit bid, but really we're searching for them. C-130s were hovering around looking at with their infrared. They still haven't found them to this day. So in mountaineering, you live and die by the decisions. Living's always a good decision. The mountain will always be there. So after that, climbed Kilimanjaro in Africa, then Mount Elbrus in Russia, Everest, then Vincent Massif down in Antarctica, Aconcagua in Argentina. And then, oh, the last one I did, I actually climbed Denali 3 times, snowboarded it once. Still have never stood on
Snowboarding
top.
it?
Still have never stood on top though. So that's the one
Really?
that I haven't. I've been, within, I could see it, but just made good choices. But I wanted to finish all of this because I always try to keep my family involved and always visited orphanages and just tried to make it less about me and just trying to make a difference to serve others. But the final one was Kosciuszko in Australia, and it's not like major. It's like 7,000, I think, feet, 7.5. But brought the whole family up, and they were, I forget if they were like 5 and 8 or something, and we all cruised up, did our little 5-mile round trip, and made the top. So it was special just to do it all together.
What was the hardest mountain to climb besides Everest?
Denali it's brutal. It's a long ways. You put 60, 70 pounds in a pack, another 50, 60 in a sled, roped up to each other, and it's just a long ways, super steep, very, very unforgiving. And the weather is very unpredictable. I had a friend my last time, he fell through 3 crevasses, free hanging in a whiteout where I had to like drop down on my ice axe, create an anchor system, get him out. So it's brutal, but for me also, I haven't stood on top, so of course, and I've been on it 3 times. But each one is unique in their own way. But yeah, I think Denali, if I had to say, it was besides Everest, just because of the altitude.
So how do you physically train for these climbs, especially Mount Everest? Is there a training regimen that you put yourself through? Is a special diet that you go on? Is it just what is it? Because that's obviously that's not like a weekend warrior type of adventure that you would go on. So what's your training like to get into shape for something like that?
Yeah, it's a lifestyle. I think if someone thinks they can just show up, those are the people that put themselves and others at risk. So I'm always very cautious. And on Everest, I went by myself. I was independent. I wasn't part of a big group. But for training, I live, I have 4,000, 5,000 foot peaks, in my backyard, and I can go and find 14,000 footers if I want. But getting up and it's kind of like time in the saddle, if you're riding, that type of thing. Waking up at 4 a.m., throwing 60 pounds in a pack and hitting a 4,000 foot peak. Usually I'll throw water weight so I can dump that, save the knees on the way down. I don't think that's helped because my knees are so jacked from the Navy and
Yeah.
everything. But yeah, just doing that. As far as diet, I mean, you're burning like crazy, burning calories. And I did all this in my 30s, like mid 30s, and I'd never had to watch anything I ate. And now my
Eh,
metabolism's slowing
eh,
down. So
right.
that's new for me. I don't like that. But yeah, it's mainly in cross training. I'm a swimmer, so doing swimming in the lakes. I don't like stationary things. I like being outdoors and just, the nature and everything that can bring with it. But yeah, just hitting it hard, and you train for the things within your control, and physical fitness is definitely one of them. Altitude, you can't train for. You can't pre-acclimate down here. Some people have like hyperbolic chambers and stuff, and I know there's some ways, but there's no shortcuts. You can't fast track that stuff, but you can prepare for your technique, your experience, your fitness. And, when you're on the mountain, you got to respond to things outside of your control. The better you train down at sea level, the better you're going to be up there.
Now, do you think your Navy training helped you while you were climbing Everest, to not panic and to just kind of look at what you have in front of you and to just kind of like take that breath? I know we'll get into that here in a couple more minutes, but do you think that your Navy training influenced how you were up on Mount Everest?
Yeah, yeah, I know it did. Yeah, that's actually why I wrote that second book, Calm in the Chaos, because that is the question I get asked the most after talks. Like, how didn't
Really?
you panic up there? And my job in the Navy was never panic. Panic kills. In fact, when you jump from a perfectly good helicopter in the middle of the ocean, whatever sea state, that person that just ejected or whatever the situation is, they see you as flotation. They are panicked and in shock, and you have to maintain control of that. And like, unlike most jobs in the military, I operate alone. Our job, we operate alone. There's certain circumstances. If you have multiple survivors, we're going to jump multiple swimmers or just depending on the scenario. But for the most part, you jump from that helicopter, it's one on one or one to many. And you have to be calm. And yeah, we'll get into it on Everest, but
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think it's also just that mindset that the military, especially in like special ops, will drill into you. You're not going to make it through unless you have that never quit mindset.
Now, what was that conversation like with your wife when when you decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to climb Mount Everest, and you made it up in your mind and in your heart? Was she scared, excited for you, try to talk you out of it? As I know that my wife would be pretty scared for my safety. So, can you walk us through what that conversation was like?
Yeah, it was more of the I'm going to climb the seven summits. She didn't know what that was. I barely knew what that was. And then it came down to wait, is Everest is one of those? I at first, told her that like I've climbed Rainier multiple times, Denali, when you start talking statistics of like, how many deaths, have occurred on them, like there's been way more on those. And she's smart. She's like, well, how many have attempted them? It's like, oh, those specifics.
Right.
Yeah, it comes down to that. But I don't know. She didn't try to talk me out of it. I mean, she knows that I make good choices and safety is paramount. Getting back's more important than the mountain. It wasn't easy, but she also knows how I'm wired. Like she sees that. She was dating me when I was jumping out of helicopters and deploying and doing that, and she can see the difference of if I'm a couch potato versus actually getting out there and doing something, getting blood flowing. And it's just who I am. And I think that it's so important. And I'm so blessed and so grateful that a lot of times she gets to be on stage with me. And in fact, in the book Calm in the Chaos, she co-wrote with me
That's
because
cool.
yeah, she's a Christian counselor. So I wanted her expertise and experience in there because that whole book, the reasoning was to help people panicking in their own lives, which is everyone, finances, relationships, medically, whatever, jobs, maybe to abstract something from the rescue swimmer community where our whole job is to never panic and to maybe use some of that training and those experiences to help others. But I'm very much straight to the point. So like I'll just be like, get over it. If I write the book, where she's a lot softer. So like anything cool in that book is definitely from her. But yeah, she recognizes this is who I am and respects that. And she may be uncomfortable with it because it's so different from her. But she also knows how present I am at home and that I'm a decent human. And yeah, I think a lot of people can learn a lot just from her and how she's dealt with stuff because in a lot of relationships, it could be the man or the female that will try to control or change the person for who they're not. And it can really just strip that person of who God created them to be.
Yeah, that's a great point. Being with my wife for so long, never once has she ever tried to change who I was. Like I said, we're polar opposites, but it works. And she likes certain things that I don't like and vice versa. But it's just we accept each other for who we are. And I've always said this about her is that she's battle tested. She's not lip service in anything that she does as well. If she says that she's going to do something, she's going to do it. And she's always had my back. Now, there's been a few times in our relationship where I could be dead wrong and she's had my back, but then you go behind closed doors and she's like, I have your back, but you were wrong,
Hmm.
and it just,
Mhm.
sometimes you just have to eat that humble pie and just go, yep,
Sure.
yep,
Well,
you
that's
know,
accountability too, and that's awesome. But
100%.
it's not doing it in a public form either.
No,
So just being
no,
respectful.
100%. And you hit it on the head. It's that accountability. I'm accountable to her. She's accountable to me. And same thing with our children. We try to teach that. And again, just own your mistakes, own the good things that you do. But also, if you make a mistake, that's okay. Own it, come up with a solution, fix it, and just learn from it. And I always say that, like, if I always pointed the finger back at her, we wouldn't be married today.
Mhm.
So I've had to own a lot of things in our 27 years together, and we're better and stronger for it.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Same, 100%. Yep, we're hitting 31 this year.
well, yeah, I mean, you're doing something right with 31 years together,
She doesn't like
So
change though either, so
that's me.
that works out for me.
Yeah. See, that's me. She likes to go with the flow and you have to adapt and everything else. And
Mm.
I guess it's the old law enforcement mentality. We'll complain until something changes, but then once something changes, we'll complain about that too, So, but yeah, it's just, it just works. But if you could also describe what's the logistics of planning something like a climb to Mount Everest. You were gone for 2 months, which obviously too, what was a strain on the family. I know it kind of tore you up a little bit, but
Mhm.
what's the logistics in planning a trip like that? Because, like I said, that's not something that you just do on a weekend.
Yeah. The hardest thing is leading up to anything. When I was deploying, it was like the lead up, and then once you're there, now you're actually working towards what you were worried about, but you're working to get back. And it's kind of the same, but the logistic side of it definitely kept me busy. So having a contact over in Nepal, they have it dialed in, but there's a lot more to it because yeah, I'm gone for 2 months and I had a full-time job and I was going to be gone from the kids. And yeah, there's just every aspect, I'm the breadwinner and do all the bills and everything else. So just getting all that stuff dialed in. And I was also, I visit orphanages. So I was coordinating with multiple continents of different orphanages to showcase technology, to have a video conference and have like the science guy on there, like building popsicle stick instruments and stuff. So it was like all these like extra things that I think most climbers don't do, but there was a lot. And gear wise, that's its own beast. So, I already had most of it, but you got to have all the high altitude mountaineering stuff like the down suit, different devices that you use on the fixed lines up there, and different changes of clothes for different areas of different mountains that you're climbing. So it's different gear. So yeah, there's a lot.
So how do you know what to bring? Do you talk to some of the people that are over in Nepal? And I want to talk about the Sherpas too. They sound like
Sure.
amazing people. Who do you call? Who do you contact? Be like, okay, what equipment am I going to need?
Yeah, it's a small community. So, and most of the Everest guides and climbers come out of where I live or Colorado, makes sense. The 15,000-foot peaks. But also the guiding, like RMI, Alpine Ascents, like the guiding groups have like a list. So you can go on their website and actually cross reference that with, just to have the mandatory stuff. Sometimes it can be inflated. So having that experience and guiding on other mountains helped. And then just you realize you're going to be gone for a long time and you want to prevent sickness or anything that can like take you down. Also have like things that make you happy, like peanut butter cups and, just like because you're going to be eating just some nasty food that you're not used to in these areas. But yeah, just cross referencing all that, having people you can talk to. I have people that reach out to me all the time, whether it's Everest or smaller mountains, even like Mark Pattison he's an NFL player, the only one to climb Everest, climbed with him around here, took him up Rainier, and just, we had some conversations, just kind of getting them through and filling in the gaps. But information's out there.
Oh, okay. So was there ever a point where you're like, I might not make it back? Or has that never even crossed your mind, because you have the get after it mentality? Did that ever cross your mind? And if it did, how did you compartmentalize that? And how did you deal with that, right before you left?
I mean, that's the mental toughness, but also just being realistic. So I made a video just in case, just a goodbye video. Joanna's seen it now, but the kids haven't. She only saw it just in the last couple of years because they were doing a remake of my story for a faith based organization. Still hasn't come out yet, but they wanted that footage. But yeah, that was so tough. It took so many takes just in my office because I would just be bawling just thinking about that. And then that in itself can just take you down. It's the same like leaving for 6 months in the military. It's just like, oh my gosh, like I might not come back. Lost lots of friends, crashed in helicopters and whatnot. But you also, you served and your capacity, and you never think it's going to be you, and you kind of have to have that mindset. And it's not arrogance; it's having that confidence within reason, taking calculated risks, but just being smart in all that you do. But if you go in thinking this is it, probably will be because, like I said earlier, you panic, you die, and it's amazing. Just the mindset alone of doing anything extreme, any type of job or anything, it's so critical. Once you lose that, it's probably time to retire.
I'm glad you touched on that too, because there is a huge difference between arrogance and just knowing that you're ready and that you're prepared. I work with so many amazing people. We trained mentally, physically with firearms. We would try to work out as much as we possibly could. You always train for those contingencies and the what ifs, and this could happen. And you every day you put on the uniform, you realize that it could happen, but you
Mhm.
just pray to God that it won't happen, and in the back of your mind that you did everything that you possibly could to prepare for that moment, whether it be shooting a little extra at the range or running that extra mile, because those split seconds and that muscle memory is what does save your life.
Mhm.
So,
Early on in our careers too, it's easy, when you're young, that arrogance can definitely creep in. I know on my like right when we went on our first deployment, we weren't to the Gulf yet, but helicopter crashed with a sister squadron, and like one of them was my instructor. Like the crew, everyone died. So it's like the humility hits very quickly, and it's like, okay, this is real. And then every flight you're briefing and preparing for crash scenarios. I mean, so much of it is water and land survival, and it's so ingrained. But yeah, it's interesting because you can be 19, 20 years old and 18 years old, and here you go. Here's an M240 and a SIG. It's like go out
right,
and save the world. It's like wow, it's wild because I see like my kids now. My daughter's almost 22, and my son is 19, and it's like, man, when I was your age, the stuff I was doing, and I'm
right,
just like so like protective, but it's like I have to like back off and be like, okay. Like my daughter in the when the Ukraine war started, she's at University of Washington, and during spring break, everyone else is going to Cabo or whatever. She says, I'm gonna go to Poland to go and pray for the soldiers that are training and going across the border. And I'm like, the
wow,
hell you are. And then
right.
she's like, well, I really feel drawn to do this. She's like, and she did. And I had to realize, oh my gosh, okay, at her age, what was I doing? Like I was
Not
literally.
that I know I would. At 19, 22 years old, I know I wasn't doing that. That's for sure.
Yeah, but
So,
I was over in the Persian Gulf flying circles around the aircraft carrier in harm's way, and she's over there and, in the name of Jesus, trying to bless these soldiers that will probably not come back. And that was just beautiful, and it was a very, very impactful experience for her, and we just prayed, and she was safe, and she's back, and, you know.
That's fantastic. I want to get into the Everest story now and talk about your travel over there. When you leave Washington, where do you fly out to?
It's brutal. Fly to Taiwan, hop on another plane, fly to Bangkok, stayed a half a day there. The time's all jacked up. And then from there, fly to Kathmandu. And then a few days in Kathmandu and hop on a airplane and fly up to the shortest and one of the highest, most dangerous airports, if you want to call it a strip on the side of the Himalayas, land a plane. And then from there, it's 38 miles on foot into base camp.
Wow. Wow. When did you hook up and meet your Sherpas? Who was going to be your guide?
Yeah, yeah, my Sherpa friend Pasong, and it's funny, I was just, messaging him earlier because working on getting him a visa to come over. We met in Kathmandu. I don't even know if we were gonna be, like, necessarily paired up because I went independent. I wasn't part of, like, a big group, but there was different Sherpa support. So, like, um, the people that are, bringing in the porters bringing in, certain gear and stuff just to base camp, and then from there, it's like climbing Sherpa porters that go up through the ice fall and everything else. But yeah, we met there, and then we flew in together. Just amazing because some of the people that I was climbing with, we were all kind of sharing different resources, had connections over there. So we were going into like Sherpa's families' houses. And over there, it's like if you're going to eat, it's going to be a while. It's like Dalbot and like different local food, but it's like, oh, we're going to have chicken. There goes the chicken running across. They go and kill it, and
Yeah.
they're having some fresh chicken.
So explain to people who might not know who the Sherpas are.
Yeah, Sherpa are the people that live up there in Nepal and Tibet. So they live at altitude. Just amazing people. It's just very simple. Pasong was a Buddhist monk, so most are Buddhist or maybe Hindu, and just very simple. There's some electricity, but I mean it's. I mean, I haven't been back since 2011. Things have probably changed a little bit, but it's villages and the infrastructure. They're burning yak dung. So you have yak and zos, different animals that help carry things up there in the Khumbu Valley. So they're burning like feces to heat stuff up, and yeah, it's pretty primitive, but just amazing. Man, they'll do anything for you, and you get that mutual respect. You do the same for them.
It sounded like that they were so hospitable just by reading your book and like the amount of weight that they could carry and just keep going at such high altitudes was just absolutely amazing to me and try to make you as comfortable as possible, especially some of the meals. Even reading the book, it was just crazy. Some of the meals that you were eating, I'm sure, your Reese peanut butter cups probably tasted amazing, but yeah, because what you were living on spam and tea and
Yep.
and how were you able to get the fuel? You know what I mean? For that climb, was that difficult?
So each village has like tea houses. So I tried to go as vegetarian as I could because I didn't know where the meat was coming from.
Mm,
I didn't know the food handling. You figure if you're using yak dung, like, it's people get sick, and a lot of people get like the Khumbu cough up there. The whole region is like Khumbu, the Khumbu region, but you're like breaking ribs. You're coughing so hard. So I was doing everything to not get sick. But in the tea houses, you get like a pizza. It's not like a pizza that we would think of. It's almost like boiled the dough. It's like steamed or whatever. It's pretty gnarly. But yeah, you just try to eat as much as you can. And I brought lots of snacks too. I had a big duffel full of snacks to just, some survival food. But yeah, lots of tea, lots of rice and lentils. And yeah, as you got higher up, it just gets worse and worse. And you're burning through so much. You're just losing all your muscle and everything. You cannot eat enough. And at altitude, you don't feel good. So it's really hard to sustain. at higher altitude.
So
So,
you had to spend certain amount of times at a certain elevation so your body could acclimate. Can you walk us through that?
so Everest stands at 29,035 feet. So that's 30,000 feet. It's the same elevation that your major jet airliners cruise at. So there's only a third of the air up there, third of the ozone. So if you were to pluck your body from where you're at there in Texas, put you on the summit, you'd pass out and die. Same like if depressurization happens in an aircraft, everyone passes out, you crash. So in order to survive, you have to acclimatize. And how that works is you climb high and then come back down and sleep low. So even from base camp to or I'm sorry, from Lukla, where we flew in to base camp, it's 38 miles on foot, but you're basically going up 10,000 feet. So base camp's at 17,500 feet. So you still have over 2 vertical miles to get to the summit. And by forcing your body in those oxygen deprived areas and coming back down, your body will produce, it'll respond to that, produce more red blood cells, which carry more oxygen. So that is the process of acclimatization. So to climb Everest, it takes about a month climbing high, coming back down, sleeping low. So it is a long process. And the most dangerous part of the mountain, besides like summit day up at the top, is right out of base camp. That's the Khumbu Icefall. That's where you see building-sized blocks of ice, the seracs, for over 2 miles, and they're continually falling. There's avalanches kicking off left and right, and that's where you see all the ladders, those cheap
Yeah.
aluminum ladders tied together. And I had to go through that, I think, 8 times by the time I was done, because you're just moving up and down. So you climb through the night, because once the sun comes out, things become very unstable. So all your gear, the crampons, the spikes on your boots. The unique thing about some of these high altitude mountains like Everest is there's fixed lines. So Sherpa and guides and myself, we will fix ropes to anchor points. So I have my full down suit, harness, backpack, um, headlamp because I'm going through the night, and I have a device called a Jumar or an ascender, which basically bites into that rope and it's attached to my harness. So if I fall, I don't fall too far because it's got like backwards teeth that kind of like dig into the rope. So that's why I can climb alone and I don't have to be roped up to another person. But it's just slow moving, just going up and down, up and down. And, coming back down to base camp and, weather's not always great. So you might be stuck down there for a few days. We actually left and hiked 15 miles out to climb a safer mountain, a 20,000 foot peak called Island Peak, to just acclimate on a safer mountain and get some other experience.
How cold can it get up there?
I think on summit day, I mean, I had 50-mile-an-hour winds. So with wind chill, it was probably -40, -50. In Antarctica, it was -70 when I summited the highest peak down there. So Everest it's the tropics compared.
Right. So did you have a problem acclimating? And you got a cold too. Did that affect you?
Yeah, so that I don't know if that was it. It's hard because when something goes wrong in the mountains, you start speculating and rationalizing everything, and you just have to be aware of that. So I had been blessed by a lama. You go into like this house and they pray over you, and he was totally sick, and I caught his cold, and a head cold at 17,000 feet is brutal.
Right.
It's like a vice, and I could visibly. I sent a picture to Joanna. She's like, "My gosh, your forehead is swollen." So that's not good. So with high altitude, like sickness is just feeling sick, but when it hits edema, like your brain is swelling. You can have heart failure, lung failure because everything is swelling. So the only thing you can do is get down to lower altitude. And when I had that sickness, that's actually one of the main reasons I wanted to go to lower and climb down at a lower altitude. So I went the 15 miles. And it was amazing because every step I could just feel the pressure release. And it was actually a pretty, I don't know, it was just this spiritual moment. No one was probably a mile or two, anywhere close to me. I was just on this ridge by myself, just listening to my what were the old, it was like
iPods?
iPod, yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. I don't even know
We're
if
dating
podcast
ourselves now.
existed back then, I know. But just my faith mix I had, it was just such an amazing experience. It was cool too because I was listening to like Mercy Me, and then when I got back, which, jump forward, the person who introduced me to my literary agent and a lot of people in the movie industry and stuff was Mercy Me's manager, Scott Brickle.
Really?
And yeah, so then he came out to Seattle. I met him in Franklin, Tennessee, and he flew out to Seattle because Mercy Me was playing. He's like, "Hey, dude, come on down." So next thing, I'm down there telling my story to the band behind stage before they went on stage. I'm like, "Yeah, I was listening to you guys at the Kumbu Valley there when my head was going to explode." So appreciate it.
How cool is that?
That's
You get
surreal. Yeah.
the Yeah, right. Yeah, no doubt. And you had a co-climber that you climb with that was struggling to adjust too, right?
Yeah, he was having a hard time. He went for the summit but didn't make it. He made it back down safely, but he was the whole time, man, he was just really struggling and not being very honest about it. And that's super important. When I've guided mountains, it's like you can see right through, clients that so want to be there. More than anything, or maybe they told everyone they're going to climb this mountain, whether it's rainier or whatever. It's like none of that matters. Like you're clearly not doing well and it can be super dangerous to you and others. So you have to be honest. And yeah, he was vomiting and coughing just crazy like most of the time. So it was brutal.
So how did you keep in contact with Joanna back at home? Did you go cold turkey, like not even talk to her, or were you able to call her every once in a while?
Yeah, this is the one climb I didn't have a sat phone because they didn't send it on time. They like screwed up. So that sucked. I was like, no. 'Cause usually I'll call like from the summit, be like, "Hey, I'm here." This was the first year, I think 2011 was the first year they had 3G. There was a tower like 5 miles away, so it was a line of sight. So I would hike out like a mile in base camp and had my little 3G, and I was able to actually have internet too, but 3G and trying to send pictures or anything, it was pretty bad. I did a WebEx, a video conference with some sponsors and with my church. And it was interesting. I remember talking to my pastor and he's like, "Oh my gosh, what just happened?" I turned behind me, like an avalanche just kicked off. I'm like, "Oh, it's the avalanche." I just get dusted, but it's like it's so common over there and it's like in the distance. So a lot of people will go cold turkey because they don't want to
Hmm.
have any emotional influence. That's just not me. Like that's what, you know, recharges my battery.
Yeah, it would for me too. But how long did it take you to go up and down to finally go up to the higher base camps and then ultimately on your summit attempt?
It's about a month. So that's getting into base camp, climbing Island Peak, and now just going up, touching Camp 1, coming back down, bypassing that, going to advanced base camp at Camp 2, coming back down up to 3. And Camp 3 is on Lhotse face. So Lhotse is the fourth highest mountain in the world. You actually climb up Lhotse, and it is just a straight up ice and rock and snow face. You climb up that, and that's where you see the tents that are anchored,
Hmm.
like kind of just hanging there. And that's the highest you go for acclimatization because you can't acclimatize in the death zone. So at 26,000 feet, because there's only a third up there, and your body is just it's dying. So there's not much you can do. So you want to limit your exposure. But yeah, it took about a month.
And what day did you just decide to go for the summit attempt?
I know we were down at base camp, and you have to check the weather because there's only a couple days you can summit Everest because it's so high. It's up in the jet stream. Mm. and you need like a 5-day weather window. So it would have been like May 10th, May 11th, something like that. And my summit attempt was on May 15th. But it takes, 2-3 days just to get in position to get up the mountain. And yeah, it's interesting because when you're going for the summit, you've been acclimating, been on the mountain for a long time, but there's still that mindset of, okay, we're going, and I'm going to be getting into areas that are unfamiliar. I have not been there yet. Can't even picture what they look like. So yeah, it's interesting, but you just go. So got up to, I don't remember if it was just me, Basong and my other friend. We were kind of staggered, but I got up to Camp 2 relatively efficiently. I was acclimated pretty well at this point. Um, I think at that point, some storms, some wind had hit, and like a lot of the tents were shredded. So I was just out there helping like get everything back together. And then I think I stayed there one night, and then the next day went up to Camp 3. I went up Lhotse Face by myself and had to put the tent together and everything. And it's crazy. So when you're at altitude, I mean, it is like 5 seconds of between each step. It is so just slow motion. I've never felt anything, any other place that can compare. Like even when you're acclimated, it is just slow. You take a step. And for me, there's a lot. It's like running a marathon, it's super boring. Like, and you just get in your own headspace. But for me, I repeated Emily, Jordan, Joanna, step. And that seemed to be like my 5-second Emily, Jordan, Joanna, step. And that just kind of, I'd get into this rhythm and made my way up, found like a platform cut out in the snow, looking for like our tent. And I saw Pasong coming up. So I just kind of sat there and hung out, took some pictures and video. And when he got there, we made the tent together. And just putting the poles together at, this would be 23,000 feet. You're just so winded, but clipped into the rope. So, as we're working and stuff, like, cause if you fall, it's game over. You're falling for, at that point, that would have been close to a mile, and people have fallen there, and you just accelerate and you don't stop. But we got our tent, we laid down, and we were going to head up to high camp the next day. So this would have been May 13th, head up on the 14th, and then hope for a summit on the 15th. So in the morning, we headed up, and about, I don't know, it's like maybe 1,500 feet above Camp 3, I stopped to get some water. So at this point, I'm using supplemental oxygen. So typically you use it about at Camp 3 at 23,000 feet. And supplemental, it's not like scuba, because if you come off 100% compressed air, you'll pass out and die. So it just mixes with the outside air. But the tanks are like 15 pounds. So carrying a couple of those, so it's just extra weight. And I have a mask, I have goggles, and my mouth is in there somewhere. So I get up to an anchor point, and I anchor off to it, so I'm secure. I take off my goggles, put them around my arm, take my mask off, and at that point, my foot like slipped out. And natural reaction, I went to grab the rope. My goggles slipped off my wrist and went down the mountain. And you don't typically bring extra goggles. I usually wear sunglasses, but with the strap from the oxygen, they wouldn't work. And it's vital to have eye protection, especially blue eyes, more susceptible to snow blindness. And miracle or whatever, some Sherpa that were, thousands feet below were waving at me. They were going up to a higher Camp 3. They had retrieved my goggles. I mean, they could have went for over a mile. And
Wow.
I thought they were. I thought my expedition was over. And they waved, and, I came off oxygen, everything. I left my pack, I rappelled down. And once I got to them, I saw that they were cracked. So the internal lens, so there's an external and a internal lens. The internal was cracked. And anyone who's been in the cold knows the contrast of your hot breath and the cold will fog up goggles or glasses and freeze them. Mine were freezing between layers. So I could barely see going up. Eventually, I ripped out that internal lens, not realizing that probably cut their effectiveness in half, but continued moving up. A song had already continued up. Um, in the early afternoon, met him at high camp, highest camp in the world at 26,000 feet. Made a radio call, and they said the weather would be good. The day that we went up, there were 70-mile-an-hour gusts. So a couple people summited, which would have been just brutal. One famous Japanese climber died on the south summit. Everyone else went back down. So when we called down, they said, yeah, it's going to be clear through the night and then 50-mile-an-hour gusts the following day, like later. So you climb through the night, hit the summit when the sun is rising, and then let gravity take over and get down safely. So that's very normal. What we didn't realize at the time was we were the only two people climbing for this summit, which is very, very unusual. Like because you can only come up from really the Tibet side in China or the Nepal, and we were the only two. So you try to get some sleep and rest, but it's impossible. You just lay there. You're in the death zone. You're slowly dying. And as soon as the sun set, we got our gear on and we started heading up. And right away, I wasn't feeling good. And I stopped and I talked to Pasong and just, made him aware. And he's like, okay, well, do we need to go back? And I'm like, well, let me get a snack, get some water. And I did. And that's all I needed. So I rallied, started moving just very slowly again. Emily, Jordan, Joanna, step. I was inching away from Pasong. I got up to the halfway point at 27,500 feet, an area called the balcony. And I waited for over an hour for Pasong. I could see his headlamp and he would just like stop and look down. It was really hard to see what was going on. So he eventually showed up, said he was sick. He wasn't feeling good, like vomiting. I gave him an extra water. He threw that up. So at that point, I thought we probably need to go down. We had a conversation. He's a young guy, had a couple summits already. He assured me he was fine. He wanted to continue. So we did. We kept moving, got to 28,000 feet. And this is where it gets a little more technical. And I think he realized that. And he just said he's going to go back and I should continue up. So at this point, I had to make a major decision, weigh out things. Like I said earlier, you live and die by the decisions, but you only have the information you have within a 3-foot range. How was the weather? Weather was good. How was I? I felt strong. Most importantly, how was Pasong? We had this conversation. He assured me, he said he was going to wait at the balcony, which was like right there. He ended up going all the way down to high camp, which totally fine. That's what he needed. He turned around. He left an extra oxygen bottle and he turned and just left. And I did the same. I turned and started moving up the mountain. And at that point, I was the only person in history. I've only seen one other person that's had the summit on a given day to themselves. So I clearly wasn't attempting that, but that's what was happening. So at that point, I start heading up. It's called the South Rock Step. So down at sea level, rock climbing, it would be a scramble. You wouldn't have to rope up or anything. Up there in the death zone, 28,000 feet, it's a lot. And when you have all the metal on, the spikes on your boots, you'd like wedge it into a crack, lunge up, have my ascender, which bites into the rope. It's very slow. Everything just takes a lot of time. And this is where I have, on my socials and stuff, I have a pretty amazing video of the sun rising from behind the highest point in the world, casting a perfect pyramid shadow down over the Himalayas. It was surreal, and it's surreal for me. And it's kind of a crossover into faith as well. It's just that moment of hope when you have that light. In mountaineering, you climb through the night. All you have is your headlamp, one foot in front of the other. You don't really have an indication of time. You just know when the sun is rising, you should be close to the summit. And I don't care what mountain you're on. when that sun is rising. It's a major motivator, and it's a little warm too, so that's nice. But just amazing to capture that moment and just to continue up. Made it to the South Summit, which is pretty humiliating because you get to the top, it's a false summit, you drop down, you know you're gonna have to climb that on the way back out. This next section is called the Cornice Traverse. It's like 2 feet wide, and it is literally a 2-mile drop on your left into Nepal and a 2-mile drop on your right into Tibet. So just slowly, you make your way across that, and people have fallen, which actually be pretty amazing. I think if you're going to go, be a good place to go. Beyond that is the last major obstacle, which is Hillary Step. It's a 40-foot rock climb, usually a major point of contention because on Everest, you only have one way up, one way down. If you have multiple climbers in a small window, you got to wait in lines. I had no one. It was just, again, surreal. I bounced over that, and that's the first time I could see the true summit. So the summit, it's like the size of a kitchen table, not a big kitchen table, like a small kitchen table, and just plastered with prayer flags. And they had some extra like rope and bags and stuff. I could see it in a distance. It was still going to take me close to an hour. It's so slow moving.
Now,
But
at this point, I don't mean to interrupt you, but at this point, are you like more excited? Does adrenaline take over? Are you afraid at all at this point? Because you're so high, or is it just you see you see the summit and you just want to get there? What's that like?
I would say so. No adrenaline. In mountaineering, adrenaline is non-existent. It's so slow moving. A lot of people get that wrong. Like rock climbing and certain things, you can get some adrenaline, but when you're just slow moving, I don't know, for me at least, it was more emotion. Like just kind of when you're going slow motion towards your goal and you're so close to reaching it, you have a lot of time to, again, we talked about this earlier, trying to process the moment. And it's impossible, even to this day. I still haven't fully processed it, but just being gone, saying goodbye to the family, knowing, I was about to reach this and get back to them, and just the accomplishment and everything that led up to it. It was emotional. And I also the altitude puts pressure on your system too. So I also had to go to the bathroom. So as I got closer, I made history and dumped one right there. So that was
So
pretty
after you made
amazing.
the summit, you immediately had to go to the bathroom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I dropped one right there and added some inches to the summit. And talk about hard with the pressure and everything else. Going to the bathroom up there, then the wind, you wipe and it flies into Tibet. And
That's funny.
yep.
Did you have a moment where you could just take a second and just kind of say a prayer or look around, or do you have to get down right away?
No. So yeah, you don't have much time up there, but it's, you might have like an hour, and you have to really stay within those boundaries and be disciplined about it. But it was weird being alone. So other mountains, I've soloed a lot of stuff, so I'm comfortable with that side of it. But being on Everest, I yeah, I wanted to share it. So one of the first things I did was make a radio call and just said, "This is Brian checking in from the summit of Everest," and on the frequency, everyone's listening to it. Comes on, congratulations, da, da, da. And that's when my friend and Lakpa Sherpa, who were at Camp 3, came on and congratulations, all that stuff. And, be careful on the way down. You and Pasong, be careful on the way down. That was the first moment I realized no one knew I was alone. So I said, "Oh, that's cool. But Pasong went down over an hour ago." And that's when he was like, "Hmm, you're alone?" It's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, be careful." And that's when, I talked to him later, but he talked to Lakpa, who I'd been climbing with for the last month. Said, "How long is it going to take Brian to get down?" And he's like, "Oh, Brian, it'll take him 2, 3 hours to get to high camp." And then no one would hear from me for 7.
Walk us through that.
So I tried to enjoy the moment as much as I could. I sat there, I cried a little bit. I took the highest selfie in the world, like a 360 picture, just trying to take it all in, but knew that that's the halfway point. I had to get down. And I got up and started moving, and not far into it, a few feet, everything just went completely white. And I remember at that moment dropping down, grabbing the rope I was attached to, and assessing the situation. Like, I'm at the highest point in the world. I'm completely alone. No one's coming to get me, and I'm blind. And I remember, without overthinking it, I got up and I started moving. And you asked earlier about the military. Panic would have easily killed me at that moment. I knew what I had to do. I knew just in that assessment, there was very little chance I would survive, but I never allowed that to go through my head. I just got up and I started moving. And with snow blindness, it's not black blind, it is bright white. It's if you put a light bulb an inch in front of your face, you cannot see anything. And it's super, super painful. It usually takes 24 hours to return. I wouldn't regain my eyesight for a month and a half.
Wow.
So just kept moving, one step in front of the other. I could hear, I was trying to use my eyes. They hurt so bad, and I'd just bring the rope up because I had to come in and out of anchor points, and I could hear the wind, the gusts coming up over the ridge, and I would hunker down, let it hit me, take another step. And this entire time, I never felt alone. I felt this peaceful presence around me and didn't think too much about it. But it's like if you and I are in a room and you close your eyes, I'm there, even if I don't say anything. It was just this, third man factor presence. Now I know Holy Spirit, but didn't think about it. It was just there. I didn't feel alone. I got to the top of Hillary Step, that 40-foot rock climb, and reversed my gear, started rappelling, slipped out with my spikes on the rock, and just pendulumed, hit the wall, hit hard on this platform, this icy platform below. And I remember laying there doing like a self-assessment. Like, am I broken? Like, I think I'm okay. And just sitting there for a while. And this is near where the Japanese climber had died, and his body was the night before. But I got some water, and that whole process just took forever because you have to take off everything, get a thermos out, making sure it's not frozen. So it's like inside my down suit. So everything was just taking really, really long time. The next section was that Cornice Traverse, the 2-mile drop on each side. At this point, the wind was hitting hard, but it comes in gusts. And I would take a step, making sure I had purchased with my crampons. And you don't want to crawl because your down suit is slick. You could slip out, but use your equipment, trust your equipment. The wind would come, I'd hunker down, it'd hit over me, kind of nudge me, I'd lean into it, get up, take another step. Just never felt alone. Got to the south summit and had to climb back up that, which was nice because if I fell, now I'm falling like upward. Felt safer there. Got to the top. I was going to try to kind of reverse down, like rappel down this snowy area instead of the rock cliff, the South Rock Step, and took a step and then just heard a pop, and my crampon had popped off and fallen down the mountain. Just kind of saw a blur go down. So I just saw the blur go down, and it's sunny out now. It's super bright. I can't see anything. And, except for like, if you put a light bulb in front of your head, you move your finger, you'll see like a shadow, but you can't focus on anything. So I'm like, I have to go get that. I can't get down without it. I took a step with my crampon foot, got purchase, stepped on my other one, and just slipped out. And it was the scariest thing ever. It's like go to your roof, close your eyes, and jump off. Just that helpless feeling, tumbling head over heels. The rope that I was attached to shock loaded and saved my life. I would have went for over a mile. Um, I was upside down. My oxygen is out of my pack. My mask is ripped from my face. And I remember just trying to breathe in that thin air and just how hard it was to right myself. It just took all my strength, which I'd been climbing for hours, days. Turned around or got myself turned around, put my mask back on, and above me there was this like blurry thing, and I remember crawling up to it, and it was my crampon. And it just miracle. I put that on, cut out like a shelf, sat on it, um, put my crampon on, just torqued both of them down, and I side traversed over. I'm like, okay, I'm not going down that. that's no, that's no good. And then the earth just came out from under me, a slab avalanche, it's where a thick layer on top of a thinner layer will break loose once it gets warm out, which is very common. And I remember just right away recognizing that I was in a fall. I grabbed with my leather gloves the rope. I was accelerating so fast it cut a line right through my gloves. That's how fast, just immediately. But I stopped myself. And I remember my heart just ripping out of my chest. Just in insane how much like my heart was racing. And I had to calm myself. Just calm myself down. I did. I got down to 28,000 feet, got down the rock area, and almost walked right past the extra oxygen bottle that Pasong had left. But it was like this bright orange thing. And I remember just laying down next to it, fumbling with my regulator. So I knew I'd be out soon. And I got it on there and it wouldn't work. And I troubleshot for a little bit, but don't have all day. I put my working one, which I knew was going to be out soon, back together. And I put that extra, I don't know why even today, put that extra 15 pounds in my pack and kept moving. I made it over this ridge to the place where Pasong was supposed to be at 27,500 feet at the balcony, and called out he wasn't there. But I remember being happy at this point. Like I got through the technical side. Now it was like 20 some pitches of rappel. I'm like, I can do this. And got a snack, got some water, reversed my gear and just started heading down, very slowly, trying not to like snag my crampons on my boots or my down suit. And probably 20 feet into it, my mask just sucks into my face and ran out of oxygen. And typically if you run out of oxygen in the death zone, it's game over. You're not going to make it. And at this point, I had been climbing for 33 hours from the day prior to this point, completely blind, alone. And I just dropped to my knees and just prayed. Like I just surrendered right there. And it was simple. I just said, God, I cannot do this alone. Please help me. And around the world at that exact moment, Joanna, she was at a retreat. She was sleeping. It was, different 12 hours and 45 minutes off. She was woken up and felt the need to pray for me. Other people, friends, people I didn't even know, they reached out to me later, said, I don't know what you were doing at this time, but I knew I needed to pray for you. Just power of prayer. Back on the mountain, I say that simple prayer, and it was like the snap of fingers, how fast it happened. But I just felt this energy come over me, like I was lifted to my feet. And I remember just like not overthinking it, but like, what the hell, what's going on here? And first thing I did was try the extra oxygen bottle that had failed. I'm fumbling with my regulator, got it attached, and I got a positive flow.
Wow.
And I remember taking like 5 deep breaths of air and just the feeling, the pain of that air re-entering my body. It burned. It like felt like fire. And again, not overthinking it, put my gear back on and started rappelling very slowly down, got to the last mile. It's this ice bulge, like bulletproof ice. And I remember just bright white, just trying to see anything and just keep moving forward, and just never, out of nowhere, never saw him come in. Pasong just hugs me. It's like, Brian, you alive? He's like, I'm so sorry I leave you. And I'm like, oh, don't worry about it, dude. So he helps me get back to camp. I threw him my camera. He's checking out the summit pics, and I passed out. I was out for like 15 hours. My eyes were glued shut. I'd lost 20 pounds, had black eyes. Um, yeah, but I was alive. And I mean, I still had to get down the mountain. It's still another 2 to 3 days to get down Lhotse Face and get across the ladders. But Pasong was with me, and I had some help.
Now, when you went blind, did you know what it was?
Yeah, I mean, it took a second. I'd never been snowblind, but I've definitely seen people that have been snowblind. So I had a pretty good idea.
And what caused it?
So it's sunburning of the cornea. So you can go skiing, be out, if you're not wearing goggles or something. When the sun banks off the snow or ice, it'll fry your cornea. Up on Everest, there's only a third of the air, third of the ozone protection. And with my cracked goggles, me ripping the internal lens out, and there's just a lot of time where you're off, where you're not wearing goggles. Plus, I have blue eyes, which makes you more susceptible. The thing with it is it's not like exposure, happens and then you just go blind. It's accumulative. So anything that could have been working towards my snow blindness, it all added up. And then I look at my summit pic, like on the book cover, Blind Descent.
Hmm.
That's actually my selfie pic. I can see that one of my eyes is already done. I wouldn't have realized it up there. Everything's just going in slow-mo. But once my other one went out,
What was that first phone call like to Joanna after you made it back down and you were able to communicate with her?
not good. I couldn't call her until I got down to camp 2, so advanced base camp. So like the next day, and I borrowed a friend's satellite phone and had her dial her number. And with sat phones, you have a delay. So she had already heard. She was just so happy to hear from me, but she had already heard that I had summited through like the Sherpa community or whatever. And I had to stop her and said, Joanna, I soloed the summit and I'm blind, because I was still blind. And then the phone cut out. So I own the worst phone call to spouse in history. I couldn't even get her back until the next day when made it down to base camp. Then I talked for an hour and shared everything. We cried together, and yeah. So 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 not a good phone call.
And then obviously you went home and you found out that other people were praying for you at that moment, which I thought was amazing. People would reach out to you and said that they also felt compelled to pray for you. And I often talk a lot about this on this podcast, getting a little hand of God, getting your goggles back, and then getting your crampon, and then to be able to like guide yourself down the mountain. Without a doubt that was the Holy Spirit, without a doubt walking with you, and that presence that you felt. And then I truly believe too that there comes a certain a point in your life where God does bring you to your knees,
Mhm.
and that's all He wants you to do is to reach out to Him, and He's there. He's there, and that's one thing I want people to know is all you have to do is just take His hand and ask Him to be in your heart and in your life, and He will listen to you. He will be there. And I
Yep.
just thought that was amazing in the book. That really really moved me. So,
Thanks.
what would you say would be your biggest takeaway, your biggest lesson that you learned up on the mountain and through that experience?
Yeah. And you were kind of hit it there. I've had a lot of time to think about it, and it's tough. Everyone loves a survival story, but don't really think much about the survivor. It's tough because there's 400 bodies on that mountain. So, like, what's special about me? Why am I alive? I should not be here. I should not be alive. No one has survived something like that. I believe Jesus was walking alongside the whole time, like, keep trying, dummy. My whole life, I've tried to do everything myself. I'm in control. He's like, you will reach a point, and I did. And I cannot take credit for this. I'm alive because of him. I reached that point. Others were lifting me up, and I called for him, and he was there.
And I went through that too, Brian. It was shortly before I retired. I always felt like I could do it my way. God understands. He does his thing. I do my thing,
Mhm,
and that mentality. And I'm going to do things my way because when you first start out in law enforcement, they teach you you're in control of the situation. If
mhm,
there's a problem, you fix it. You deal with it. I almost felt like I was just kind of sitting back going, okay, look, let's see how this works out for you.
mhm,
And then one day I was literally out fishing by myself and it just, call it the Holy Spirit or whatever you want to call it. I remember I just finally thought to myself, you know what? I can't do it on my own and I won't do it on my own. And I remember I was under this tree and I was fishing and the fish were biting and it was a beautiful weather. And I remember I literally just fell to my knees as well. And I just asked God to come into my heart and my life. And I just said, take the wheel. I can't do this on my own. And whatever it looks like, please just pour into my heart, pour into my life.
yeah,
And who would have known 2 months later, I was retired and living down here. And when you ask him to come into your life, he is real and it's just truly amazing. So, the one question I also wanted to ask you too is, what would you say to somebody who's struggling with faith, or who might be curious about faith, or might even maybe not believe? What would you say to somebody who might be kind of skeptical?
yeah. I guess it depends why. You know, skeptical, skeptical for a reason. Kind of understanding that. I don't know. I kind of asked my pastor something similar before this, and he said, "What if? What if it's all right? What if it's all true? It's all goodness, the stuff in the Bible. It's about being a better person." And I could see why people are that way with how things get turned in the media and politics, everything else. I'd never go there. The two most important things in the Bible are love God and love others. Full stop. You go left or right of that, you've already lost. If you can get that down, I think people feel like they can love God, but love others. But that person has a different opinion than I have, or, so what? What if? What
Right.
if it's all true? So I don't know. For someone struggling in their faith, I'd say that. Like start with love God, love others. If you're not ready for God, love others, because that'll lead to loving God. But people have been hurt, they've been burned or whatever else. You just never know what someone's story is. And it's important. I give motivational talks, keynote talks. I never make it about me. It's about every individual sitting in that audience. You can be cliche and say, what's your Everest? But really, what's your blind descent? What are you going through? What have you gone through? It's unique to you. Here's what got me down: faith and focus, never losing faith, surrendering, focus. I knew what I needed to do to get down that mountain. Take one step in front of the other. Find a reason to survive. Keep it as simple as possible because everyone's situation is complex and it's unique to them. So we can never compare to the person left or right of you.
Brian, I just wanted to say thank you again for being on this podcast. And also, too, please, everybody, get this book and Brian's other books. I'll put a link to Brian's books down in the description. And please get this book because it's not only about his story about climbing Everest, it's also a story about resilience and persistence and survival. And most importantly, the power of prayer and the power of faith. So please definitely get this book. So Brian, where can people find you and talk about some of the other books that you have?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm easy to find. Just Google Brian Dickinson. I'm writing a couple books right now. So, Bloodline of Redemption was my first military thriller, and it's funny because I was talking to Chad Robergeau because he came out with a military thriller like the same time. So our first fictions, and I like what he said. Is every nonfiction that we write, it's us going through some major trauma. So let's write a fiction so that we can just make stuff up. But what's tough is Bloodline of Redemption is actually based on a lot of trauma. It's actually stuff in the military, real events um, with anti-submarine warfare and different, CSAR type stuff that is classified. But through a fiction, I can write a book. So I'm actually writing the second in that series now, and then I'm also writing a book about a friend I served with from SEAL Team 6 who got shot down in Extortion 17, and it's his journey of faith, and it's a powerful message. So powerful that he accepted Christ the exact same moment I had my miracle on Everest, May
Wow.
15th, 2011. Just floored me when I heard that. And then 3 months later, he was shot down and killed. So there's that. I have my Calm in the Chaos podcast. So I'm interviewing aviation rescue swimmers and just telling untold stories. Calm in the Chaos. I interviewed like 40 different people from the Apollo 13 recovery to Vietnam vets to, lots of amazing, way cooler than me stories. But you can only put so many stories in a book. So I decided to launch the podcast, and it's done pretty well. It was in the top 4% for new podcasts this past year, and just cruising along. My goal is I just get out of the way and let them tell their stories because these are stories that should be told.
It is a great podcast. Please, everybody, go check it out. I'll put a link to Brian's podcast down in the description. Where on social media can people find you?
I'm on every flavor, mainly on Instagram. It's Brian C. Dickinson, but all of them. Whatever flavor you're on, you'll find me. Also, if you have the Bible app, the YouVersion Bible app, I've written a handful of devotionals on there. Even my daughter wrote one.
That's great. I'm definitely going to have to check that out. Brian, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your service, and thank you for sharing such an inspirational story. Please like and subscribe to my channel, like and subscribe to Brian's channel. Get his books, check him out on social media. You definitely won't regret it. His books are absolutely fantastic. Check it out. So thank you again, Brian, and
Thank you.
God bless and take care of yourself.
God bless.
Thank you.